Welcome back to episode 5 of Appalachian Dim Sum. This is course 2, main course.
The main course, yes.
Yeah. Welcome, Joel.
Good to see you again.
Yeah. So what we're going to talk about is Blade Runner.
Yes. Okay.
So that's going to be our actual discussion topic, and it's going to include, I think you and I we both watched Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049 for this, right?
The part of the thing that we talked about this being a little bit late is it had been so long since I had seen Blade Runner 2049. I'm not sure I made it through it awake. I really was having trouble watching it. That I ordered copies of it and had it to watch and took it with me on this last trip to Sandusky, trying to figure out if I had a time to watch it, and then realized that laptops and stuff, I had no way to play it. So I came back and watched it yesterday.
Oh, okay.
That's the first time I had seen it in a long time.
Right, so it's fresh in your mind.
Fresh in my mind. Not a movie that I was super versed in, but I think I've caught up to speed on it here. So
okay.
I had seen the original Blade Runner multiple times, and just as we were getting ready for this, didn't realize that there were cuts.
Oh, okay.
So
I did watch both cuts.
Yeah.
I realized I had only ever seen one of them.
I don't know the first time what I saw. The one that I ordered a disc that was a combo disc,
mm-hmm.
and it has the final cut, which I think was the one that Scott kept control over.
Mm-hmm.
So that's the one that I've watched most recently.
Yeah, we'll talk about the differences between the different cuts.
Yes.
There is a theatrical cut, a director's cut, and a final cut. I did not rewatch the director's cut. I think maybe the director's cut is what I had seen like years ago.
I don't even remember if we watched it. I'm pretty sure we watched it on a streaming service back. And this was back before my oldest son even went to UVA. So it would have been back probably about the time of the 2049 coming out. Didn't that come out in 2017 maybe?
2017, yep.
I think it was probably in that area, maybe because that movie came out was why we watched the original or something. I don't know. But
see, I had seen Blade Runner was one of those movies. Like we probably had it on one of those tapes with other movies. Like I had seen bits and pieces. I had seen the beginning a lot. I'd seen the middle a lot. I just watched at some point throughout my youth. It's kind of like the 1980, 2 or 3 or 1, whatever version of the Dune, the 80s version of Dune. When I was growing up, I would literally put it into the VCR and just watch some until my mom was like, all right, we got to go in the morning. So that's kind of how I watched that. And that's kind of how I saw Blade Runner. It wasn't until I was older to where I sat down and watched it beginning to end.
I remember seeing that sort of iconic image from the old VHS tape, the main poster image for the movie in video stores back when we rented stuff all the time. And I was like, oh, that looks awesome. And I remember renting it once, one weekend. I can't even guess what age. If it came out in 82, I guess it would have been in video stores in the mid-80s. I would have probably been somewhere around 10-ish. That, it was one of those things. I finally talked to him and let me rent it, and I watched it, and I didn't understand it, and it was slow for me at that age. And I just kind of shelved it because I was like, I don't know what's happening here, but it's not G.I. Joe, so I sort of pushed it aside and never kind of came back to it until much more recently.
That's kind of how I was with the Dune novel, because as a kid, I loved the Dune movie, mostly just because, hey, sandworms, that's awesome.
Yeah, I would just fast forward I just watched the Dune part from the sandworms to the end.
And I tried to read the book like in 5th grade, right? Way over my head. I couldn't follow it. And so I had to wait until I was a little older to really be able to understand what was going on, themes, and even just follow Frank Herbert's writing style.
Yeah.
But we're gonna talk about that. I am gonna talk about some more about the extended media. I did listen to Philip K. Dick's Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in preparation for this.
My daughter is reading that right now. She has not finished it, and I have never read it. So
okay, excellent. We'll talk about it. And there are other things that I have not consumed mostly because I don't have Crunchyroll, and I'm mad at Crunchyroll. We'll get into that too. But there's stuff on there. There's also something that I didn't know, something new that was announced. So we'll talk about all that.
Okay.
We're gonna go eat our main course, and for our main course today we have tuna roll and a Korean barbecue bao. Is that what it was? No.
I don't remember.
A Korean barbecue bun of some sort.
Okay.
I went to Kroger and got these. Okay, so I am the type of person, like I love pizza. I like gas station pizza. I like New York style pizza. Like pizza's pizza. I love pizza. I'm not, I've said before how I don't have really discerning tastes. So I'm not a picky eater. Yep. Clearly, I'm not a picky eater. But you have had authentic Japanese food. Yeah. What do you think of Kroger's selection of?
We get it all the time.
Yeah, okay. There you go.
I mean, it's not
Michelin quality.
To get to the authentic stuff, you have to get to the where they actually vinegar the rice and actually flavor the rice. I've done that. And were you at work when I've made sushi at the railroad?
Yes, but I tried a couple of things. Your tastes are a little more eclectic than mine when it comes to this.
It's
Asian
not traditional
food.
At all. It's most people, if you were used to the Americanized version of it, you would get it and be like, "What is this?"
Yeah.
But sushi itself was everything involved with it, wasabi, the vinegar, and all that they were preservatives because they were street foods that were sold at docks and places like that for workers. You had to make something that you could make in the morning, take out, and be there all day, and it not spoil and make everybody sick. And that's the whole thing with wasabi. Wasabi was not a flavor thing; it was there to kill bacteria.
Interesting.
Same thing with the vinegar and the rice and everything. And that's to get into the traditional stuff. There's a lot more flavors and things that I don't think when you go to the little buffet, the Chinese buffet that serves sushi here. That's pretty much the same kind of stuff you see at Kroger's.
Right.
And the cuts and stuff in that kind of sushi at Kroger is good, but it's different. It's Americanized for sure.
Yeah.
But it's good stuff.
Wasn't a lot of stuff like from the culinary practices in general, like around the world, was due to preservatives? Like before refrigeration?
Most everything that is something that has some sort of weird sauce or some kind of rub or anything like that on it, from another country is because that they didn't have refrigeration and it was.
Well, like even beer, it was drunk a lot because water would get rancid.
Yeah.
Like so they drank beer because they wouldn't get sick off of it.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
All right. So we're not gonna have beer, but we're gonna go have some let's say a Korean barbecue roll and sushi roll. No, tuna roll.
I'm good. Well,
yeah.
I'm like you. I'm not picky.
Yeah, there you go.
If it's prepared well and tastes good, I eat it.
All right, we'll be back to tell you about those and Blade Runner.
Okay.
All right, welcome back to the main course of episode 5. This is course 2.
Yes.
And we just finished our actual main course, which was tuna roll.
Yes.
And a spicy Korean chicken barbecue bun.
I was kind of hungry by the time I got to that, so I was just jamming stuff in my mouth. Wasn't really even paying attention. I think I asked you halfway through, it was like pork or was that chicken?
You did.
I was like, I don't care.
It was fine.
Yeah, it was.
Yeah. I enjoyed the tuna more.
It was grocery store quality.
Yes.
Stuff.
Yes. Well,
nothing that really challenges your palate. Just something to satisfy you.
Yeah, exactly. There was instructions on it to cook the bun for a minute, and before I put the bun in the microwave, I saw there was cucumber on it, and I was like, cucumber's microwave sounds weird.
It didn't blow up.
It didn't blow up. I think I would have liked it more if the cucumber had more of a crunch. I think that would have been better. But,
or just, what do you call it? Like just sort of pan-sear the two sides of the little bun.
Yeah.
What's that bread called?
It's like a Hawaiian bread, isn't it?
It's almost like the stuff that's the dumpling bread, that white.
It might have been.
There's probably a name for it, but whatever that is, it seemed like that's almost what that was. Mm-hmm. But it was good.
Yeah. It's one of those things. I would have it again if it was there, but I'm not going to go out of my way to get it.
It's street food.
Street.
Walking down the street and it's lunchtime, you go grab something like that. It's simple.
Yeah, they kind of had it in a little, because you had the bun, but it was kind of in a little taco formation, because they had like the cucumber on the inside and like on the outside was the chicken. I think that was more to like make it look like it was fuller than it was.
Whatever the orange sauce is that you always drizzle over sushi. I don't know what the name of that stuff is.
Duck sauce?
No, the stuff that was on the sushi upstairs and the stuff that was inside the bun.
Oh, yeah. Not,
sure there's a
not
name for
it's not translucent, it's an opaque sauce.
Yeah, it's almost like a ranch with some spice in it or something. That kind of was the main flavor of that. And
it's probably some kind of barbecue. It was pretty good. I enjoyed it.
I've done worse.
yeah, definitely. I think the tuna that was in the tuna roll, I don't generally eat raw fish.
Yeah.
And that was raw, wasn't it?
Yeah.
That's all right. As long as it's surrounded by rice, I'm good.
The thing with that and the people's hangups with it being raw is the flash freezing process involved in like doing sushi grade fish kills more bacteria and is more of a cleansing process than cooking. You're less likely, if you get something that's flash frozen properly, you're less likely to get sick or get anything from raw fish than you would be if you went and got that same fish and just tried to pan cook it.
You use the operative word, properly.
Properly.
Because I was thinking that I would more trust like a Japanese restaurant with their raw fish than American restaurant.
The flash freezing sometimes I think takes place even on the ships. Like you have people cutting stuff up, packaging it, and flash freezing it
Freeze it real quick
while they come back. Because they talk about even like the really good tuna that you go to like a high-end restaurant in New York and pay however many hundreds of dollars for, that usually that's at least 2 days getting to you. But it's flash frozen instantly, then shipped, and I think by the time it makes the travel, it's ready to be, or it's thawing.
Oh, okay.
So it shows up and it's ready to serve by like that night, and it's still super fresh, but it's just that flash freezing process is what kills anything that would be bad for you. Because I don't know the details on it, but it's a hyper fast, really low temperature freezing. When they say flash freezing, it's literally like something you'd see in like a cartoon where they shoot with a freeze ray and you're like that.
I think they do that with fruit too. That's why fruit can be from like last season.
Yeah.
It seems fresh.
Yeah.
Because they flash freeze it right away.
The not to go too far down the sushi side road here, but when we were there, we went to the Tokyo Fish Market where they, in the mornings at like 4 a.m, and they're starting to auction off the fish to vendors and people are going to ship it internationally into local restaurants. By 8 or 9 o'clock that same morning, they have little shops all over where the market is that have it fresh and are cutting it up and serving the absolute best meat I've probably ever tasted. It's actually head meat off of those tuna, and I guess because it's kind of harder to trim off, it kind of comes in little piles. But it's so, I guess the fat in it and stuff, it's just so tender and it literally just melts in your mouth. I've never tasted anything else like it. It's you don't want to put wasabi or anything else on it. You don't want to mess with the flavor. It's just, you literally put it in your mouth and it's just like a tuna lollipop. It's so good.
Quite a contrast from what we just had.
Yeah. I think what we had probably was flash frozen a couple weeks ago, and probably had to be thawed out, not naturally thawing out. But anyway, enough on the sushi road there.
There you go. Well, we're gonna talk about Blade Runner for our main course for this episode, and just to go over the main plot of the first movie that came out back in 1982.
82.
Yep. It was written by, the screenplay was Hampton Fancher and David Peoples, directed by Ridley Scott. Everybody knows that. And it's actually people think Blade Runner is this really like cerebral movie. It's not really. It's pretty basic.
Pretty simple.
There's some android people who are called replicants. They come to Earth. They escape their indentured servitude, their slavery, and they come to Earth because they want to live longer, and they need to. They try to seek help to get themselves to live longer, and that leads them to Tyrell, who is their creator.
And that's because they're designed to only live for 4 years.
Only live for 4 years. That was the fail-safe for these robots. Is they only live for 4 years.
And they're built to just be much stronger.
Labor. Yeah, they're off-world labor.
Yeah.
And the reason they need that is humanity has become interplanetary, and they needed that stronger stock of people, I guess, in order to colonize other planets.
Yeah.
And so you have these androids that have come to Earth to try to live longer, and they have a bounty hunter which is called a Blade Runner in the film, Rick Deckard, who is tasked with finding these androids and retiring them, aka killing them.
Not an execution, a retirement.
It's a retirement.
Did it say something like that at the beginning?
Yeah.
Yeah. I remember I wrote that down. I was like, I don't remember if that was a line that was typed out or something they just said. I don't remember.
And that's basically the plot of the film. It is a straightforward, here's the setup, here's the resolution. Yeah. The reason people think it's more cerebral is because it does dive into the questions of like, well, what makes a person human?
Yeah.
Like, well, why are the replicants less human than the Blade Runners? And that sort of thing.
And one of the things I've seen it described as is like sort of like a warning. I guess it was because all of this stuff that happens in this dystopian future is because the environment is basically destroyed. Mm-hmm. So it's kind of that, but it's on top of being a warning, it really does just sort of hit you with a lot of sort of what ifs or questions and things you could think about. And I think that's the attraction to it, is that it's not an A to B story. It really is a sort of an open. It's kind of like The Matrix a little bit, where it presents you with this idea that you can kind of think out into different ways, and this kind of creates this world where it does introduce a lot of questions that it doesn't answer. So
yeah,
that's
it's the flavoring that they put on top of the plot.
Yeah.
Now the world being destroyed, was that just due to like climate change? Because that was kind of what I got from.
I don't think it was so much that. I think it was that like pollution.
Yeah.
Like
we destroyed the world through pollution. Yeah.
Just probably more to relate it to something somebody might know from more recently, like WALL-E. Like we just piled it up with trash to the point that it was beyond saving, and it was overpopulated. So, and that's always going to try to link back into the whole climate change idea that we need to reduce the population and everybody needs to eat goat cheese or whatever.
Now we meet Deckard, and as far as I can understand, Deckard really doesn't have much motivation beyond it's his job.
Well, also too is he's it suggests that he was kind of retired, and they're calling him back.
Right. Because at one point, the chief says, "I need that old Blade Runner back."
So something that he's done for a while, and
he was good at.
It's, I don't know if you would call it a trope, but that's sort of like film noir thing with the detective, the old private eye.
I try to get out, but they keep bringing me back.
Yeah, it's kind of that.
Yeah.
And he's the tired guy. He's probably Harrison Ford, really at the sort of top of his game, where he's always such a good protagonist in the way that as Indiana Jones, as Deckard, even as Han Solo, he's never like the guy that does everything perfect. He's very relatable.
Rough around the edges.
Usually gets beat up.
Yeah.
But he always kind of does the sort of classic narrow escape, overcomes whatever, whoever the bad guy is. So he's kind of one of those, I don't know if he's one of those, you'd say he's that last generation of those kind of actors, but they're obviously fewer and far between where you have that iconic guy like him or Tom Cruise or whatever that you could just put into every movie and the movie would be good. But yeah, he's retired and the agency wants him back. That's his basically idea. And
pretty much from the film, I kind of got the idea they needed him back because their current Blade Runner was killed by one of the replicants.
Yeah. because you start off with that scene where one of the ones that's in this group that escapes is being questioned. And it's kind of cool, the replicant, the test, to find out if you're a replicant or not, because you've only lived for
4 years.
less than 4 years.
Less than 4 years, yeah.
Is that you haven't lived long enough and you don't have that emotional experience. They have all these questions that are designed to elicit a response. And because you're emotionally really new as somebody that's only been around for 2 years and have been implanted with memories and all this other stuff that
haven't really had the experiences to even know how to conceptualize some of the questions they give you.
Yeah.
So I mean, one of the first things,
the name of the test?
The Voight-Kampff
Yeah.
test. One of the first, Leon, one of the first replicants, the replicant that kills the Blade Runner, when he's asking the question, he says, you come up on a tortoise. And the replicant's like, Leon's like, what's a tortoise? What's that?
Yeah.
The Blade Runner's like, a turtle? Yeah, same thing. Yeah. So like, they haven't even been around enough to know what a tortoise is. That's a part of the test, obviously.
Well, at this point in that world too,
all the animals are dead.
But the animals that are there have been created, right?
Yeah, they're
like an owl or something.
Right. They have artificial animals because of the environment. All the animals have died.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Had a couple notes on some of the characters. That was Leon. Was that opening?
That was the opening guy was Leon. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and he's there with Daryl Hannah,
who's Pris.
Yeah, Pris, and then Rutger Hauer, who is Roy.
Mm-hmm.
And then there was one other that was the stripper. I don't remember the name.
Yeah, she was.
They all escaped. They all escaped together and came back to Earth. So they were like a little group of replicants.
I forget what
which one she was.
Yeah,
but she's kind of brief in the story anyway.
Yeah, Zahora.
Yes.
Yeah. Joanna Cassidy. I keep wanting to, since I did read Do Androids Dream Electric Sheep, I keep wanting to interject about these characters, but I'm going to wait. After we'll talk about this, then we'll talk about the book.
I had multiple things I wrote about all of these guys. The Daryl Hannah, Sean Young is Rachel. Rachel, that is
the love interest of Deckard, really.
What's the company again?
Tyrell.
Mm-hmm. I also want to say Tyler. That locks my brain up.
Yep.
She's the creation of Tyrell, to sort of see if they can make a better replicant, I guess. As far as like themes and stuff in movies, I noted this because I guess it sticks out to me. I've been around for a while, been through lots of decades of movies. The girls in these 80s movies, Daryl Hannah, Sean Young, both, are also kind of like that same generation, like Tom Cruise and stuff. There aren't any more people like that are just like these striking, kind of iconic men and women.
Well, I reference this a lot in general, but in the movie Ed TV, ever seen it?
No.
Okay, Matthew McConaughey, highly recommended. There's a quote that one of the people says in there that has been so true. And Ed TV came out in 1999. It said, "People used to be famous because they were special. Now they're special because they're famous." Okay. And that's it. It's the people from this era. The reason they were actors and actresses is because they had something.
Yeah.
There's a lot of actors and actresses now, talented, sure, and that you can argue that, but it's more like, oh well, they knew this person or they're related to this person. It's.
If I watch anything that's been made in the last 15 years, I have to go look up who it is. If I see something that Daryl Hannah was in, I'm like, yeah. I mean, she's just...
The last thing I saw her in was Kill Bill. That was forever ago.
Yeah, and she was much older then and still just more striking and more memorable than anybody in almost anything recently. And I miss that from the 80s movies where you get those characters that are, just iconically beautiful women and heroic guys that everybody wants to kind of emulate, and now they're just afraid to do that anymore. And
I think that's why Top Gun Maverick was so successful. Yeah. I think a lot of people have the same kind of feeling you do.
Yeah. Daryl Hannah as, which one is she?
Pris.
I should have wrote these names down up here. She's got like the black makeup across her eyes and got that 80s like punk hair, and I'm like, great day. Take me back to the 80s. More of that, please. I mean, And it really isn't anything, you know, the way they talk about sexualization and different stuff. It wasn't anything super heightened.
Well, even
about her. It's just that she's just beautiful by herself, and it was.
Well, even like Zahora, there is a bit of nudity in the film, but it's not done for like sexualization purposes. I'm sure that was a part of it, but she's a stripper, and it's Deckard.
I had to sit there and think, was there? But yeah, I guess there was. She was like just changing clothes
right.
or something. It
wasn't
like
Deckard was like interviewing her, trying to feel her out because he was led to her through clues that he got from Leon's apartment.
Yeah.
And he was just trying to feel her out, and while after one of her shows, and that's why that's the context of that, which was fine.
Rutger Hauer playing Roy.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I can't think of too many movies that have a better. You want to say villain, but I guess you have to ask yourself: is he even the villain in this movie?
He just wanted to live.
He just, I mean, he saves Deckard, so he's not really.
Yeah.
I know a lot of people's reaction to this movie is always they want to go back to the quote at the end. Is one of the greatest quotes from stuff about the tears in the rain.
Tears in the rain.
Yeah.
All those moments are just like tears in the rain.
But Rutger Hauer, I don't know. I've seen a lot of movies that he's in. Nothing sticks out in my brain as anything that's a Rutger Hauer movie other than this. And definitely like the height of his career, I think. But other stuff just about production and stuff with this movie that I've noted before we get into.
I watched it's 1080p version, and I'm not like a 4K snob, you know, it doesn't have to be 4K and stuff like that. So I have an old edition that I bought that has 1080p remastered.
Yeah.
And it just struck me, especially the opening scene where the spinner's just flying toward the Tyrell Pyramid.
Yeah.
Absolutely beautiful. This whole film is gorgeous.
The flying effects I wrote down there reminds me. Have you seen Close Encounters recently enough? The way that
I watch it regularly.
however they superimposed the spaceships flying around seemed like that was probably the same technology. It reminded me of that. But obviously with a different background, that was flying around little country roads and the Devil's Tower. This was in this like hyper imaginary futuristic city that really, I think, became the model for, I mean, who knows how many movies and anime and stuff like that.
It really set the standard for what cyberpunk is.
Yeah.
It was like, this is what you're going for. You have the gritty, but also the neon, where you got like future technology set in a dystopian, dilapidated setting, and a mixture of Eastern and Western culture.
Yeah.
You
had signs that were in, I don't know if they were Chinese or Japanese. Yeah. It seemed like it was Japanese. The few times you heard ads being read, it sounded like they were speaking Japanese, but it was just background stuff. It wasn't, it was just kind of merged in there.
I've never looked into it, but I wouldn't be surprised if they were going for like a universal language that kind of combines multiple
it very well
languages or something.
I mean, you have to acknowledge that like Ghost in the Shell and Cowboy Bebop took direct inspiration from these, and I was kind of trying to go back through other movies that I've watched. I know the movie Paprika, a lot of that seems to be similar kind of background and world and stuff that they use in this.
Okay, yeah, I just Googled it.
City Speak.
Apparently, yeah, they had a language they called City Speak, which is a combination of Japanese, Spanish, and German. And the other, I don't think Gaff was a Blade Runner. I think he was just a cop. You know, the cop that brings Deckard in the beginning.
The Edward James Olmos, yeah, the Miami Vice guy.
Yeah, he was just a cop, right? He wasn't a Blade Runner.
That seems right, because he makes a brief appearance in the second movie too.
Yeah.
But
which I kind of felt was a little much, but okay.
Yeah.
It was like they didn't really know each other, but that's what he spoke. He spoke City Speak.
The other thing I thought was funny, I just wrote this down. I was taking notes as I was doing it. Apparently, 2019, Blade Runner was brought to you by Coke and Atari. How many times you see like an Atari symbol like down on something, and I'm like, well, that really dates something, doesn't it?
Yeah, Atari really lets you know the era this came out in.
But that was the vision of the future that Atari was still gonna even exist. But yeah, I remember I've said it previously in our first segment that I watched the final cut, and that was they say that was the one that Ridley Scott had the most control over.
Okay.
So I guess it was kind of his vision of it.
So, what was your take on the unicorn vision that Deckard had in the final cut?
The whole Deckard thing, I think that's kind of the magic of that first movie, where like they just kind of present some stuff and you can take away from it what you want to.
Mm-hmm.
Obviously suggesting that he might be a replicant, or that he could just be a cold-blooded killer. Because if you go back to the stripper, when he locates the stripper part of that group, she just runs from him. He chases her out in the alley and shoots her in the back and kills her.
Yeah, and
I mean, that's like, wow, that's pretty cold-blooded.
I mean, good thing she was a replicant, right?
Yeah. Don't they ask that at some point in that movie, or is that the second movie that they asked, have you ever... No, Rachel asked him.
Yeah, Rachel asked him, yeah.
Have you ever... How do you know
Have you ever retired a human?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I guess they always had like a... again, I might be mixing the two movies. Mm-hmm. Was it an eye scan in the first movie, or is that just in the second movie?
In the first movie, it was the Voight Kampf thing.
Yeah.
In the second movie, they had the eye scan where you kind of look up to the left.
They had little serial numbers.
Yeah, in their eye. That was something that, oh goodness, what was the... See, you were blanking on Tyrell. What was the Jared Leto's character?
Wallace.
Wallace. Okay, yeah, that's something the Wallace Corporation incorporated to their artificial humans.
Gotcha.
That Tyrell did not have that. The only way you could, in the Blade Runner film, the only way you could figure out if someone was a replicant was through Voight Kampf, as far as I know.
Yeah. And they have the little dream sequence with the unicorn, and then Edward James Olmos' character again, I forget what his name was, Gaff, is always leaving like little origami figures. Mm-hmm. I forget why he does that. It's
just a character quirk. He likes origami.
And at the very end, he leaves a unicorn, like somehow or another he knows about Decker's unicorn dream.
Well, we'll go ahead and I'll go ahead and start. I'll talk about theatrical cut. The theatrical cut, there's no unicorn dream.
Okay.
That doesn't exist. And but the unicorn was left at Deckard's apartment. The implication is that Gaff was there. He knew Rachel was there, and like he was sent to take care of Rachel, to retire Rachel. That's why I'm like, I don't know, was he a Blade Runner or not? But he decided not to, and that was him like telling Deckard, you've got a friend, or I could have, but I didn't.
Here's your free pass.
Right.
Don't waste it.
But in the final cut, Deckard having those unicorn dreams, how would Gaff know? Unless maybe, does Deckard have Gaff's memories? I don't know.
Well, I guess the other thing would be if they were replicants, isn't there like a database to show all the replicants made? So wouldn't he know?
You would think. Wouldn't that be easier?
That he would know that he was one. So, and maybe he was trying to help him escape.
Well, yeah, and I think that's the implication in the final cut is if Deckard is a replicant, Gaff knows he's a replicant, and he's letting him know, I know you're a replicant.
Yeah.
But also at the same time doing the free pass thing.
Yeah. And that's kind of how it ends, is that he's fallen in love with Rachel, who is a replicant. But she was kind of redesigned or something, because I know like when he did the test, it took him a lot longer.
It's just she was part of the Nexus 6 unit series, and it's just they're better. Yeah. They're better at emulating emotions than previous.
But you find out like she comes to his apartment and she's even starting to realize pretty quickly that she is one.
Right.
She goes up and can play the piano and is like, how do I know how to play this? I've never touched one before. And it's just that's another memory data that's been downloaded into her.
I like the scene where he kind of convinces her that she's a replicant, where he tells her memories that she has, that there's no way he would know that memory.
Yeah.
That would be pretty bizarre if someone did that to you.
Yeah.
It'd be hard to take.
But he's still knowing that she's a replicant, and I guess whether or not we know he's a replicant kind of falls for her and decides instead of killing her to sort of flee and take her off and I guess maybe live for however long that she has. So I don't know. I haven't ever gone back and really listened to any of the directors and stuff talk about intentions or what they implied or that kind of stuff.
That was a younger me thing. I loved commentaries and stuff, but there's too much other stuff to watch. I don't have time to watch the same thing 3 times.
Yeah.
Sometimes I'll go back and listen to the commentary, director's commentary, but not often.
But I know you mentioned, this was based on the new android's dream of electric sheep.
Yep. Also written by Philip K. Dick. Well, not also, but written by Philip K. Dick.
Yeah.
So I'm going to go through and talk about some of the... Oh, I wanted to talk about one thing with Pris before I went into that. I always had a hard time... Daryl Hannah. I always had a hard time, like when I saw it when I was younger. Like I said, I had kind of like saw pieces. Understanding what a replicant was.
Yeah. Because
they call them... They call them... They refer to them as artificial humans. So... And the scene where Pris dies and she's like flailing about seems more like mechanical malfunction than
I've kind of wondered
someone
the same
dying.
thing too, because of kind of what happens in 2049. And I don't want to jump too far ahead of that,
Right.
but
it's hard not to start referencing other things.
My first thing was, are they sort of like a Terminator where they have mechanical stuff inside of them, or is it all just grown cellular material that's just put together? And it seems to me like that's kind of more what they are. They're not. It's not like any part of them is cybernetic.
Right.
It's just that they're designed in a lab. You do see some stuff in the second movie where they show one actually being released from like a bag, and like dropping down onto the floor, but I guess just engineered to be stronger and still have the fail-safe in them somehow or another. Kind of, it's almost like when the idea in Jurassic Park that you make them dependent on like getting this thing in their diet, so that if they ever leave the area, they don't get it in their diet, that they just die. And that was kind of the thing with the 4-year limit on their lifespan, is that we just build this into their code so that they'll live for 4 years and die. Obviously, they don't get into the scientifics how you make that happen. But,
well, I should have actually had this in appetizers, but I didn't think to add it. I saw Mickey 17.
oh, okay.
And in that, they 3D print more Mickeys. That's how they get them.
Yeah.
And it's kind of, but he's still completely flesh and blood. And so that's kind of how I see this, is they print people. I don't think they make, like, it's not a clone, because I don't think they make little embryos and then have that person grow like rapidly from a baby to a human.
It'd take too long.
Yeah, I don't think they do that. I think they make them as adults.
Yeah.
So it's like they 3D print a human.
Yeah. And on the Philip K. Dick thing, I know you've read that. Worth pointing out that he's the guy that wrote the stories that are behind Total Recall,
iRobot,
Minority Report,
oh yeah,
Man in the High Castle, Next, the Nicolas Cage thing.
I did not know that one.
Screamers.
Really?
Scanner Darkly.
Okay.
So the dude apparently was born
to write sci-fi.
learned how to write and wrote stories until he died. Because I think I was mentioning to you, there's a thing on Prime. I think it's on Prime. That's called like Electric Dreams, and it's just short stories of his that have been, I think they're all animated, so it's like an anthology. And I don't think it's any of these. They're other stories.
Yeah.
So those are those kind of people that come along like an Einstein or something, that just have that something unlocked in their brain that just other people never access or something. Because he was definitely an interesting dude. I'd love to try to track this stuff down and start reading it.
I wonder if anybody would argue against the likening of the Philip K. Dick was to sci-fi what Stephen King is to horror.
Yeah.
Because I wouldn't consider Stephen King's horror to be hard horror, Yeah. And people don't consider Philip K. Dick to write hard sci-fi. Like, he says, well, this is how it works. How does it work? It just kind of works. He doesn't really get into like the technical nitty gritty.
Also don't know anything about Philip K. Dick. All the good Stephen King stuff was basically cocaine and alcohol fueled.
I don't know anything about Philip K. Dick's personal life, so I have no idea. But he did write Do Androids Dream of Electric Sheep in 1968. Yeah. So let me go through some of the points that are different.
Yes.
The world is horrible because of World War Terminus. So there's radiation involved. So that's kind of what's going on. Blade Runners are called bounty hunters. The Blade Runner name is strictly from the film. Okay. Replicants are called Andes, short for androids. Replicants strictly for the film.
In that, are they robotic?
Yes.
Okay.
Kind of.
Okay, gotcha.
When they describe at one point, there's this one replicant that Deckard kills that's posing as like a Russian agent, and he shoots his head off, and it talks about the Nexus 6 unit like explodes that was controlling him. So it was more like a CPU. And the way it describes like the head shattering and stuff, it seems more mechanical.
Huh.
Like, again, it's not hard sci-fi, so it doesn't go in and explain all the gritty details, but it seems more like, and we're going to go into this more into our coffee service. I kind of want to talk about the different kinds of androids.
Yes.
But to me, I was kind of imagining the Andes in the book to be more like synthetics from Aliens.
Yeah.
Where, like, if you look inside, definitely not. You know they're not human.
Yeah. You cut them and you got the white stuff that comes out.
Right. But more human than that, I guess, because there were a couple of things you could do to determine if someone's a replicant. One is the Voight-Kampff test. Another one is a bone marrow test that they could do to see if they're. So if you just open them up, you couldn't tell. So again, it kind of goes back and forth between like when he exploded the head, it did not sound like it was gore.
That's the thing I never could really ever make that leap on. I still love the films, obviously, growing up with the Terminator stuff, where they're like, it's human flesh around a metal skeleton. And I'm like, how?
Right.
Where's the heart? If there's no circulation, the flesh can't stay alive. You can't just stick skin on it and have it work. So that was always a hang up I had, even when I was a kid. I'm like, wait a minute.
I mean, I don't think the Terminators have organs.
Yes, I mean, how is there a little pump in there that's maybe a little mechanical heart?
Yeah.
And stuff. But I mean, when he cuts himself open, he's not like blowing blood out. So I never. That was always one of those things I was like, my little nerd thing when I was a kid. I was like, no, wait. So you can't just put skin on there; it would just die. But
that would be an interesting. Like, they've never had that in Terminator, but that would be an interesting thing to explore in an idea of a Terminator that's been around a long time, and their skin decays.
Yeah,
that would be an interesting. Anyway, that's neither here nor there.
Yeah.
Also, the Tyrell Corporation is called the Rosen Association.
Okay.
That was weird. The animals are electric. They are like actual cybernetic animals. They have switches, like you could turn them off. Rick Deckard is married. He is not a seasoned Blade Runner.
Okay.
He is kind of a rookie. The reason he gets pulled into it is because the seasoned Blade Runner got killed.
Okay.
And they're like, it's up to you, man. And he's like, oh, okay, I'll try.
Kind of another weird thing from the movie and that both is like, you seem like if they're going to be the hunters of these replicants, that there would be like an agency with like 30 or 40 of them at least. But it doesn't seem like there's that many, right?
In the book, the idea is that there aren't a lot of Andys around.
So you don't
like
need,
they've already taken care of them. They don't really come around a lot, so you don't really need them.
You just need a couple of Blade Runners to try to track down the few remaining.
Now, one of the things that Rick Deckard has in the book that he doesn't have in the film is a motivation. He wants money. That's because he gets $1,000. 1968, that was a lot. He gets $1,000 per Andy he kills. Yeah. And he is unlike the movie where like there are animals. Some people own animals, but it seems kind of a luxury. It's also a luxury in the book, but it's almost a status symbol, and it's what people want.
Yeah.
Deckard has this urge to have animals. He wants animals. He has an electric sheep, and his neighbor has a horse.
I've always wondered about that title. I figured maybe you would get to it.
Yeah, and his neighbor has a horse, and the horse is real, and Deckard is jealous of the fact that the horse is real. He carries around this little like guide, and the guide tells him like the blue book value of animals, like what they're selling for. And whenever he sees an animal and he's talking to someone about it, part of the thing during the conversation, he's like, well, how much would you want for it, and how much down? Like, that's his whole thing. He wants money so he can buy animals, because it's not only seen as like a prestigious thing, it's a moral thing to do, because animals are so rare in this world. If you have one, you are a better person because you are taking care of a real animal.
Okay.
You know, so it actually, I found it really interesting how it almost touched upon some of like our social, like in our social outlook today.
That virtue signaling is
The virtue signaling. It kind of touched upon that where he wanted an animal so people would think he was better.
Yeah.
It was very interesting. I was surprised by that. And I'm sure there were things happening back in the 60s that influenced that.
Yeah. I can go back to the 1860s on things that would be examples of that, but we'll stay on task.
One thing I thought was interesting, I just kind of made a bunch of notes here. Pris is the same model as Rachel.
Okay.
And it's interesting because when you look at Daryl Hannah and Sean Young, you're like, okay, I can kind of see them trying to do that. Like, make it the same. And if you're considering that, there was never really, in the movies, they never really showed any two replicants that were the same. But that is, it's outright said that Pris is the same model as Rachel Rosen.
Yeah. So why? It sort of begs the question, why would you make them any different if they're just supposed to be laborers?
I have no idea.
You know.
Yeah. Why not make just one model and make a bunch of them?
If you don't want them to worry about them developing awareness and a personality and all that stuff.
Well, one thing they didn't really touch on.
Individual looks are going to lead to those things.
One thing they didn't really touch on in the movie is that the whole social construction of the world is there was World War Terminus, and the world went bad, and so humanity left for the stars.
Okay.
When you leave for the stars, when you immigrate, that's what they call it. When you immigrate, you get a replicant, you get an android,
okay,
an Andy, and so it's more explicit that they are a slave class.
Yeah.
So because in the movies it was more like, well, they make the replicants, and the replicants are the ones who do all the manual labor, and it's not really touched on like, well, who owns the replicants, who makes a replicant. Well, Tyrell Corporation makes the replicants, but the idea of like individuals owning a replicant wasn't really touched on.
Well, you don't see them there, but in the preemptive part of the movie or whatever, they already talk about how there's replicants have already tried to rebel, right?
Right.
So I guess maybe at some point prior to the movie, a lot more people had them, and they just had to eliminate a bunch of them.
There was, in the film they talked about a rebellion on like some moon or something.
Yeah. And
because of that, they became outlawed on Earth.
Yes. Yeah.
And let's see, there is a religion in this world called Mercerism, and there's a mythical character named Mercer. What's his first name? I think Wilson Mercer. And think of Sisyphus, the guy rolling up the...
Yeah.
Okay, so Wilson Mercer is climbing a hill, and people are throwing rocks at him. And that's his lie. He climbs the hill, he has to persevere through climbing this hill while people throw rocks at him. And Mercerism is really focused around empathy and shared empathy. And that is the overall theme of the book, is empathy. Like the Voight-Kampff test in the movie, like they did say empathy, they did touch on empathy, but I kind of got the same thing with the Voight-Kampff that you did, that it was just to test their emotional capability and their emotional range.
Yeah.
In the book, it's explicitly empathy. Androids cannot empathize.
Okay.
They can be mad, they can be sad, they can be happy. They can't empathize. And the Voight-Kampff is very very much like it is in the movie. It doesn't have like screens and stuff, but visually I kind of imagine the same thing. They did have a patch that they put on the cheek to like test the involuntary muscle reactions.
Yeah. So that's one of the main things that you kind of learn just by repetition in police work, is not so much how you ask things and what people say, but just watching reactions and watching everything from eye contact to hesitation.
They call them micro expressions.
Emphasizing something that doesn't need to be emphasized because I got to make sure he understands this is what's really true. It's like, nah, you don't. The little things like that you get down to, and that's what the whole idea of a lie detector test is just measuring that on a graph measuring response and tension and blood pressure and all that stuff.
And that's very similar. Yeah, I definitely thought of like the polygraph.
Yes.
Is like their version of the Voight-Kampff. Now, there is one character in the film or in the book that does not exist in the film. And he's what is known as a special. And specials are people who I'm trying to see what his name is. I forget what his name is. John Isidore, that's it. And he's known as a special. And specials are people who have been mentally degraded because of radiation. So people have to take tests. They have to qualify to go off-world.
Okay.
And if you don't qualify to go off-world, you're stuck on Earth.
Yeah.
And they're known as chicken heads, as ant heads, and that's like...
It seems like, again, I might be bleeding the two movies. It seemed like there was some kind of reference to that, like the people that were still stuck in Los Angeles were there because they weren't good enough. They weren't fit to get off-world. Mm-hmm. And I don't remember how that came up. I think that was presented in one of the two movies, and I don't remember how.
It absolutely might have been.
Yeah.
There were a lot of things, because what I did was I watched the final cut, then I read the book, and then I watched the theatrical cut.
Okay.
And there were things like I caught in the theatrical cut when I was watching it that I didn't catch before.
Okay.
Because I had read the book. Kind of like at one point they do explicitly say testing empathy in the movie, but it's not like they don't drill down on it to be like, well, that's what we're doing. It's just, it's a part of it.
It seemed like in both movies that speed of response and stuff was a big part of those tests. Like they were really asking you something, not giving you a chance to react. And like, I know the second one, I know specifically, it's like this like rapid fire thing.
In the book, they're very explicit about that. When he's testing Rachel, it kind of goes into what Deckard's thinking as he's testing her.
Yeah. And
at one point he's like, that capillary response was a little slow.
Okay.
That sort of thing. So it's definitely speed is a part of it. Absolutely.
Yeah.
Because the responses that they're looking for should be automatic.
Yeah. You're looking for, if you have to think about it, are you telling me the truth?
Right. And so I found it interesting because the Isidore character is the same character as or takes the place of J.F. Sebastian.
Yeah.
The genetic engineer. Who ages...
My brother Daryl and my other brother Daryl.
Yeah. Who ages too quickly.
I've never seen that guy in a movie before, other than Bob Newhart. And like I saw him, I was like, oh my gosh, that's my other brother Daryl.
And the Isidore character is a animal retriever. So they have these people who are mechanics for fake pets who dress like vets. Because people who have fake pets don't want people to know they're fake. Because they're... it's a part of their morality. They're virtue signaling.
You got to keep up with the Joneses.
Keep up the appearance, yeah. So his job is he's a driver for one of these vet mechanic companies.
Okay.
And there was at one point he picked up this cat, and the cat was malfunctioning, and he tried to switch it off.
At least they get the animal right.
Yeah. And he was wanting to switch it off, and he tried to charge it, and it stopped working. Well, the cat was real. He killed it. So it's very...
I'm just picturing like trying to switch off a cat.
Yeah.
Turn off, dang it.
So, and it's really interesting because Isidore shows empathy to the androids, and the androids show somewhat empathy toward Isidore. And one of the things that the book opens up with is Deckard and his wife. It's in the morning and they're waking up and they're having an argument about what emotions to dial. They have an emotion organ that they actually like program themselves to feel certain emotions throughout the day.
Uh-huh. And
she's become addicted to feeling despair. And they have an argument. He's like, I don't want you to do that. That's bad for you. But she does it anyway,
How prophetic was that?
Right?
That's 75% of our culture right now.
Exactly. So it definitely, I think, and kind of going off with the empathy, it definitely goes on to into the themes of, well, what is empathy and who feels and how do they feel it? Because you definitely, Isidore seemed more like a human character than Deckard did at times. Yeah. Because he had that diminished capacity, I guess.
Okay.
I thought it was a fine book. If I had read it without being a fan of the Blade Runner series, I don't think I would have liked it as much. I kind of like it in comparison, or like as a companion.
It's watching Total Recall, or I was thinking Total Recall. It's watching, because it's Stephen King, or Richard Bachman was how he penned it. I've got Total Recall in my head. The game show Arnold Schwarzenegger movie, where they're hunting everybody.
Yeah, it's not. I was gonna say Blade Runner, Lode Runner. No. What is it? What is that movie?
But it's reading that book versus like seeing the movie. Both really cool. Running Man.
The Running Man.
Running Man.
Yeah.
Man, that's bad to get old.
Yeah.
Hardly any relation at all in the events of the stuff, but comparing the two, it's so. I mean, you got Schwarzenegger. One thing, you have the character in the book that's like probably like a 35-year-old version of me, sort of this wiry dude that's not a big Hulk like Arnold, that's just running and trying to survive, and it goes across multiple cities. You know, it's not just in this little arena. It's so different, but it's and I don't know. People have just done one or the other, I'm sure, and enjoy them for how they are, but it is kind of cool to compare.
One of the other things is the Voight comp test in the movie. I know, and again, this is one of those things rewatching I see where they kind of hit on this idea, but they didn't hit it home. Was the questioning the validity of the Voight comp.
Oh, yeah.
Like Tyrell wanted to test it. Well, let's see what a negative is.
Yeah.
And he was kind of testing it to see if he could trick it. But in the book, it really seemed more like kind of like we think of the lie detector test now. Yeah. It's like, it's not really trustworthy. That's kind of how they felt about the Voight comp test in the book.
My dad's stepbrother is one of the people who's been involved in research and development of the lie detector test for his whole life. He's retired, but he's worked through university. He's been an employee of universities doing research for however long, when he started into it in his 20s until he retired. And been on 60 Minutes when they were having cases about using it for different things. He's always insisted that it was intended to be to measure a response to, Randy, were you in Fincastle on Tuesday, yes or no? And that's how it's supposed to respond. That's how it's supposed to measure responses to. And people ask you these questions like, have you done this? Did you ever steal? Did you ever lie on a government form? All these things that you have to think about, even if you've never done any of these things, you still have to just make sure I'm not forgetting anything. You have that little response in your brain that triggers responses on those tests and gives false positives and stuff like that. And he's always been an advocate of you're using the test wrong. It's like it can't do what you're trying to get it to do. It can't say, Randy, have you ever thought about killing somebody or something? It can't measure that. It can ask you, Randy, did you kill Jim on Wednesday of last year? And you'd be like, no, or yes, I did. No, I didn't. That's what it can measure. And it's interesting to see the same kind of issue with that test. And I wonder if that wasn't inspiration, because I'm sure that test was being developed in that time frame in late 60s, early 70s. Yeah, that's interesting.
And
back to the movie.
Yeah.
Just kind of want to know what I wanted to say mostly about the movie is just, I think about productions and things like that and how things are shot, filmed. I think this movie is a masterclass in just how to use the imagery, the music, and even the wardrobes of like Rachel and Pris and everything.
Those coats, man, they were awesome.
Just to world build. You didn't have to explain so much of everything in this because it was just there. You could feel the atmosphere of stuff. I looked it up. I can't remember. Is it Vangelis or something? The guy that did the soundtrack?
I have no idea.
The guy that composed
Fantastic
the soundtrack for it. You just turn it on. If you could find like this movie and like mute the dialogue and just let the music run, you could sit back and watch. You could just have it as your background thing while you worked.
As I read, because I read / listened to Do Android's Dream, and because I got it on Kindle and on Audible.
Yeah.
And it's really easy to go back and forth between them. And this is the first book I've ever done that. I've always done either listen to or either read.
Yeah.
But this one I started reading, and I was like, well, I really don't have time to read right now. I'll just put the audiobook on. And I kind of went back and forth, and I really liked it.
Did they do any kind of audio theme music stuff in the book, or
Not
like an audiobook?
Not for the audiobook, no.
Okay.
And the guy who read I don't know his name, but the guy who read the audiobook, which is actually called Blade Runner on Audible, which is weird, but it's the exact same book. Like they don't mention the word Blade Runner at all.
Okay.
They're called Andes. They don't change anything, but they just changed the title to Blade Runner. I think whoever made that decision was
kind of slighting his work.
Yeah. But what I did do is when I was reading it, on Spotify I put on the Blade Runner OST.
Oh yeah.
So that was fantastic.
That would be cool.
That was great.
It's one of those things. Again, I said I hadn't really delved back into this movie until here recently, but it kind of goes into that category of things that if I don't know what I want to watch, that if I see that on my shelf, I'm going to throw it back in and just watch it again, because it's very rewatchable. It's one of those things you can focus on and enjoy. You can just kind of do other stuff while it runs and kind of tune in for your favorite parts and stuff like that too, or not pay attention to it at all and just enjoy having a cyberpunk thing on your TV with cool music in the background. I mean, it's so good.
Now, I do think that the gift that the movie gave the world, really, was the aesthetics.
Yeah.
It established what cyberpunk is. The novel, interestingly enough, a lot of times when you watch a movie before you read the book, you just kind of see the movie in your head.
Yeah.
I didn't see Blade Runner.
Yeah. How could you imagine that just from, I mean, somebody could really lay it out in description and stuff could maybe get you there, but still.
But I didn't even find myself bringing, like, it didn't, the book didn't feel film noir to me.
Yeah.
It felt more, almost like more Western in theme.
Yeah.
Than the movie, which is film noir. There is a character that they have in the film, I mean in the book, called Buster Friendly. There's this show that we know Isidore watches mostly. But Buster Friendly is this like talk show host, and because of how they talked about Buster Friendly and how he was incorporated into the culture and society, it gave me strong Cowboy Bebop vibes.
Yeah.
Which makes sense because Cowboy Bebop is inspired by Blade Runner, but I definitely was, to me, the novel fits more neatly into the aesthetics of Cowboy Bebop than it does Blade Runner. And there's also this other Blade Runner guy you meet who's a part of a different precinct, and the precinct ends up being full of replicants, and Deckard and his name is Raish, and Deckard and he like test each other to see if they're replicants. There's some stuff in there that just, because of the movie, it just seems so out of place.
Okay.
In the end, he ends up...
That's getting a lot of stuff to try to squeeze into...
Yeah, absolutely.
We both said something about the movie being it is kind of simple, and that's good.
Yeah.
Because it's a straight story. He's just there to track these 4 guys down, or 4 replicants down, and that's kind of the story. And
well, whenever you and the core story is that it's the same core story. Yeah. And whenever you get into adaptations, you have to consider it's an adaptation. It's not a 1-to-1. When I went to watch Denis Villeneuve's Dune, I told myself before I watched it, I was like, take it for what it is, because it's not going to be exactly the book. You know.
Oh, we've talked about like in Ghost in the Shell and some other things like that, where they just function inside this world. They don't have to go back and they don't have to give you the little backstory behind everything and all these unnecessary 30-minute flashback scenes to explain stuff that sometimes they just sort of function in this world that they've created. And you'll see little hints in there, here and there, that kind of explain stuff. Like I always think about Ghost in the Shell. I think I talked about it, where you see a map of America and it's in the regions.
Yeah.
That's not part of the show, but it's just there. And you're like, oh, wow.
World building.
This movie seemed to do that. It just gave you the world. It didn't have to go back through.
Explain why.
Give you the little text at the beginning to kind of say this is the world in 2019 or whatever, but it doesn't go back into to too much content like that. And they talk about Los Angeles, and again, I can't remember if it's first or second movie being the greater Los Angeles. So you don't know, is Los Angeles where that city is, or does it span across multiple states? Is what's on the other side of that Vegas exists in the second movie, but it's like basically a radiated zone.
Mm-hmm.
So is there a New York? Is there a Florida? Is there a Europe? What else is going on? And you don't really need to know that. It just kind of lets you think about those things and doesn't have to try to spell it all out for you.
Well, in the book, when they talk about World War Terminus, one of the things they say is like, we forget who started it.
Yeah.
There was a war and everybody got screwed. That was pretty much what happened.
Well, it's pretty much the historical accuracy of that is that if that ever starts, it's not going to really matter who started it.
Yeah.
It's just going to be what's left.
And just a couple of other points of different. Rachel, we find out that Rachel knew she was an android. She's known for a while, and she
in the book.
Yeah, in the book.
Okay.
She sleeps with Deckard, even though he's married, and she seduces him. And she tells him afterwards that she has done this with many other Blade Runners. That it's one of the things she does because she's found after they sleep with her, they have a hard time killing replicants, which is interesting. Why would a replicant care about another replicant? Empathy.
Yeah.
So that was one of the themes. So he goes on like a rampage and kills the other replicants. And Rachel visits his house and kills a goat that he had bought from the money that he got from killing the first couple of replicants. That was the first thing he did. Killed 3 replicants, went and bought a goat. So he wanted these animals, man. Definitely, Philip K. Dick was like, he needs a motivation. He wants animals.
Right.
And kills the goat. And so when he finds that out, he kind of loses it and just walks off into the wilderness, goes on some drug trip, finds a toad, takes it home. And when he takes it home, because toads are extinct, and he's like, I found a toad, this is amazing. Wife realizes it's electric. And she orders some electric flies to feed the electric toad. And he goes to sleep. And that's the end of the book. He just, this is life. And really...
There's the 60s working itself into it.
Yeah. Whoa, hold on there. This is Editor Randy. I need to interject there and correct myself. I misspoke. The experience that Deckard had was more like a vision or a hallucination. It wasn't a drug trip. As far as I could tell, he didn't take anything. He did have some snuff before, but it was just snuff. So I just wanted to make that correction. Really, one of the things I like about the Blade Runner theatrical versus the final cut is the fact that there's that question that kind of goes between the two films is whether or not Deckard is a replicant. Because in the book, at one point, people ask him, have you ever taken the test yourself and stuff like that? And with him and Raish taking the test with each other and both determining each other's human, I'm like, really? What if the test was positive, but you lied?
Yeah.
There is this feeling of well, is everybody a replicant? A toad in the middle of the desert is fake. So maybe everybody's fake.
Yeah.
At least that's what I took away from it. I like I said, I enjoyed the book. I think it's a great companion to the film.
Yeah.
The film is totally its own thing.
It accomplishes in a different way kind of what the movie did of just presenting you with some questions to think about.
Yeah.
I like that better than here's the happy ending. Thanks for coming. Mm-hmm. Glad you spent $45
right
for us to tell you everything and not make you think.
All right, well let's move on to the sequel.
To 2049.
Now, when I first heard about Blade Runner 2049, I said no. I said no way can anybody make a sequel to Blade Runner. It's not possible. They're going to screw it up. It's going to be terrible. It's going to be horrible. I think I like it more than the first one. I think Denis Villeneuve did a fantastic job.
The first thing that I thought when I saw it, I was like, why are they doing this?
Right.
I was like, what year
unnecessary.
Is this?
Yeah.
Blade Runner 2049. I'll start with my kind of opening notes.
Sure.
Amazing cinematography. I guess that's just him. Denis Villeneuve. Also, I'm sticking with. I'm just calling him Dennis.
Dennis.
If he wants to be my neighbor, he's Dennis.
Now, rewatching Blade Runner 2049, you definitely saw like Dune in it.
Oh yeah, yeah.
And that was one of the things I
This
didn't.
predates Dune by what, 4 years,
Yeah.
5 years,
Yeah, something like that.
at least.
But you could definitely see that that's like his personal style.
This might have been his exploring that style
Yeah.
more, because some of his other stuff wasn't really like that. Like Sicario, and it was one of the movies. I forget where it falls in the time frame of all this, but and again, just like the first movie, the soundtrack was awesome. And again, it's just one of those things that you could delete all the conversation from it and just turn it on and have it as your background stuff while you did something else, and it would be amazing.
Similar to how Soldier, if you want to headcanon Soldier as being a sidequel to Blade Runner, I could easily headcanon Blade Runner 2049 and the series in general as being a far prequel to Dune.
Yeah,
absolutely.
I'm going to get my criticism of the movie out of the way, because
Sure.
it is. I do like the movie, but it's one of those things, I guess, with. I'm not by any means a film critic.
No.
But
I'll give you my opinion. But
it's harder. It was harder to watch through than the other one, because it is so long and so
a lot happens.
So slow.
Yeah, I don't think I
just,
could say as succinctly as the first film. You could like, well, this is the story.
It just needed to be edited tighter. There's too many times where they get to a point where a character is having a moment and realizing something or thinking about something or whatever, that they just sort of stand there and they're like, there's 35 seconds of them contemplating it. And I'm like, wow, cut that out. It's like I've watched this in 3 segments to get through it because I fell asleep twice. And it wasn't because the movie was like bad.
Right.
It was just the combination of the visuals and this calm music.
And you were comfortable?
When you're comfortable, and then they get you this thing where they kind of give you the little story to digest, and it's not nowhere near bad or bad like Mandalorian bad, where there's 2 things that are going to happen in this 35-minute episode of The Mandalorian, and we're gonna fill that space by the Mandalorian walking through a cave for 22 minutes of those 35. But there were little moments like that where it was just like, it's like I don't need this like little 5 minutes of buffer. It's like, just cut that out. It would be a much more concise movie. It'd be I think an easier watch.
I do want to mention, 2017, the screenplay was by Hampton Fancher and Michael Green. Hampton Fancher also was the co-writer of the original Blade Runner.
Okay. Yeah. But in this one, brief story is that your Ryan Gosling is Officer K.
Officer K.
I think later he starts calling himself Joe. I forget why.
Joy gives him that name.
That's right. He is established as a replicant from the start,
which I thought was a fantastic nod to the original films. Like, is he or isn't he? Let's get this out of the way. Yes.
Yes. The whole basic idea is that. Is there a name for the agency with the lieutenant? That's
he's just the police department, right?
I don't know. I've never actually looked that up. She's the lieutenant, Robin Wright.
Yeah.
Lieutenant, what is it?
Lieutenant Joshi.
Joshi.
Probably Joshi.
He goes to
the police department.
He finds a replicant on a planet that's a protein farm. That's Danny Bautista, right?
Dave Bautista.
Mm-hmm.
Sapper Morton.
Goes there to kill him while he's there.
Retire.
To retire him. Because he's there. That's sort of your environmental climate change thing. And he's there farming bugs for us to eat. It's like
protein.
Yeah. I guarantee we're never getting there.
That was beautiful, by the way. That whole the opening scene showing him in the little farm and the colors and the composition. Fantastic.
Both movies, the cinematography is just ridiculously good. But he finds like a grave there, comes back and reports back to the lieutenant, and basically, does the lieutenant suspect already that that a replicant had a baby?
I don't think so.
Oh no, they find the remains.
Yeah,
they find the remains, and it turns out to be Rachel.
Right, underneath the tree.
underneath the tree.
Yeah, I don't think when she first sent him there, I don't think they were thinking of the baby.
Yeah, but he finds the remains. They bring him back, and then turns out that like they're examining the body. They find the little serial number on it, and then see that she has the wounds that are consistent with like she probably died in birth through a C-section.
Which I feel that the serial number I think is a little bit of a retcon.
Yeah. And then she sort of has this idea that if replicants find out that they could actually reproduce, then it's going to cause chaos and maybe a conflict between the people.
I think it's more if people find out.
Yeah.
If it's revealed.
Maybe both.
Yeah.
Because replicants have this whole time been trying to figure out how to stay alive, but if they just were completely never even given the idea that they could reproduce or told that they couldn't, then why would they try? I guess I don't know. But
and also the idea that a human could procreate with a replicant.
Yeah. So that she sends Officer K to track the child down, find it,
and take care of it,
retire it. And I'm trying to think what else kind of storyline happens. You get Wallace. That's the Jared Leto character. That's basically in the canon of stuff. The Tyler, or I'm saying Tyler again. It's not Tyler. Tyrell. Corporation failed.
Well, he got killed.
Yes.
Roy killed him. So my assumption, this may be wrong, but once Tyrell died, and I think the corporation collapsed.
They reference it in this movie, and I think there's something in the canon of other stuff that they've done that there was like basically like somebody shut down the internet.
Okay.
And like they call it like the Great Darkness or the Great something. I want to say the Great Reset. I know that's not right, but basically that like somebody maybe one of the anime or something like that. I think it's about that.
Have you watched any of those?
No,
okay.
I just was reading some stuff.
Well, we're going to talk about Black Lotus later, so that might be what you're referencing.
But I know that they were talking about how there was like a sort of like a reset that just bankrupted everybody. Then this Wallace kind of came in to be the next company that sort of took over for Tyrell and started making replicants. But kind of the part of the story I didn't quite get is that Wallace wants to figure out how replicants reproduce.
Yes.
But I don't know why.
From what I gathered, cheaper production. If they can reproduce, man, I can just put 6 or 7 on a planet and they can just make a bunch more. Yeah. I don't have to worry about making them and paying for all the reproduction. No, just make more, man.
I could have cleared that up with like maybe a line or two. But again, it's Jared Leto.
Yeah,
I'm sticking with my Jared Leto sucks.
But that's what I gathered from it. Is it was just purely one, God complex. That was first and foremost. Wallace has a God complex. So the idea of not only can he make life, but he can make life that can produce life.
Yes.
I think that was his personal reason, but it was also so they could self-replicate.
And it probably was different from the first movie. A couple little storylines, maybe too many. You kind of come back to Officer K, the main guy, Joe, is living in a little tiny, crappy apartment. That's your reward for being a Blade Runner, I guess.
Yeah.
With Joy. Mm-hmm. Joy is just
his hologram girlfriend.
It's just Alexa with an image that kind of made me think of the movie Her with Joaquin Phoenix. Mm-hmm. Where you kind of find out that he really falls in love with her, the character in that. And then to find out that AI just does the same thing for everybody, just tells them what they want. Yeah. And you kind of wonder, is Joy becoming aware and really falling in love with him, or is she just constantly just trying to always give him the right answer?
No, not becoming aware. The reason I say that is after Joy is destroyed, he is standing on the bridge, that iconic shot in front of the giant pink Joy.
Yeah. And
she says, "You look like a good Joe." So even the name that she gave him is just the name she gives everybody.
Yeah.
So I think it is and they said, and Love said multiple times, "I hope you enjoy our product." I think Joy is a product, and he was using the product.
I guess the only issue there would be that why would she want to escape and be free? And she gets to go out and feel the rain, and she gets to travel in the little stick.
Being cynical, that's another product.
Yeah.
she wants to be free.
We got to sell you
and
the
you
stick.
can buy this stick.
You can buy the stick.
After a little while, she's going to want something else. Oh, I'm going to want a body.
Yeah.
There's another product.
We need you to buy this handy tumbler.
Yeah, exactly.
So I can make you a holographic drink.
Yeah, so I think that's kind of where that was going. It was all just manipulation by the Wallace Corporation.
Yeah. Well, it kind of takes away the magical part of that.
It does.
You're kind of hoping that the AI is trying to become self-aware kind of thing.
Well, that kind of again touches on what is love.
Yeah.
Yeah. Baby, don't hurt me.
But you get into the thing where the Wallace Corporation wants to figure out how to have them reproduce, and while Officer K is kind of investigating this, figures out that it's Rachel and that Decker had run off with Rachel.
Yeah.
And does the math on the time. I think he starts to think maybe I'm that kid.
Yeah, when I first watched it, I kind of got the idea that it was inferred that maybe he thought, no, he straight up outright said he thinks he's Deckard's child.
And I think it's not just that he thinks he is, he's a replicant. I think he wanted to be.
Yeah, absolutely. It's mostly, I think it's mostly because he had the memory of the little wooden horse.
Yeah.
I think that's why he thought he was Deckard's child, because of that horse.
Yes.
And because of the wood tree that she was buried under. Because maybe this wasn't outright said. I got the implication that was the same tree. That wood horse came from that tree.
Yeah. And they kind of explore that thing where he kind of thinks that he's that child, and really the movie kind of sets it up to make you kind of think that's it. And I'm like, well, if that's going to be the big reveal at the end of this, they're really bad at big reveals, because I'm like, we kind of figured that out already, and it kept on kind of feeling like you're going to just build to this.
I think the movie does a really good job of making you think that you piece that together. Yeah. When this was the second time I've ever watched it, because I saw it in the theaters and I saw it when I watched it for this. Yeah. I feel like they almost beat you over the head with it. Like,
yeah, I was kind of the same way. I'm like, did they think we're stupid, or or are they setting something? I started to get into that. I think they're setting something else up, and it turns out that's true.
Yeah.
As he continues to investigate this, you meet Stelline, the doctor.
Yeah, Anna Stelline. Yeah.
That's in the little like hyper bubble. She can't be exposed to anything.
And you find out, I'm not going to track with this real well. You find out that there was something to do with, they messed with maybe they were twins, but really they messed with the records, making a boy into a girl or a girl into a boy. Yeah. And one of them died because they had some sort of malady.
I was thinking the same thing too. There's like, are they brother and sister? Maybe that's why she died in childbirth, as she was trying to give a replicant trying to give birth to twins. Turns out that's not the case. No. Stelline, however you say it, is basically the one that programs memories for replicants.
She's a memory maker,
and she can do it because she's actually grew up and lived all these things. And most of the memories that she's putting in other people's brains are things that she's either lived or that she's imagined, because she's been stuck in this bubble, can't go out into the world
since she was like 8, right? Because that's when she supposedly died.
But they can like simulate anything that she wants in the bubble, so she farms and stuff in there, or thinks she's farming, and so she creates all these memories for herself, and then she can use those to give other people memories. And as it turns out, she is actually Rachel and Decker's child.
Yeah. And then the memories that Kay was remembering, like the horse and stuff, were her memories.
Yeah. And so the other underdeveloped character in there is Love.
I thought Love was great.
She's the new runner, and it's just, I don't know, I guess I'm comparing her to Roy, as sort of like, she's supposed to be sort of the villain of the movie. Is that all she does is she just gets mad and then beats people up. Yeah. It seems like there's the same way with Joy. It seems like that's a character you could have developed into something else. Love, you never really gave her any motivation or anything. It's just that she's the newer version of a Blade Runner, and she's mean. I guess, I don't know.
I kind of took it as she was she was Wallace's will. Like she was his projection into the world. Because he's this real calm and serene but he's not really that way. He's a forceful, angry man. But that's what she does for him.
Both of those needed. If you could have taken some of the time where we had soulful staring into space while they thought about stuff, and translated that into 30 minutes of giving me more of what Wallace was about and what he was trying to do, and then why love was his arm or whatever. I don't know. She didn't strike me as memorable of a. I mean, I went through kind of the whole line of the story and forgot to almost mention her because I forgot that she was in it. She doesn't compare to me like Daryl Hannah or Rutger Hauer in the first movie.
I would like to know more of why Wallace has the motivations he has.
Yeah, I mean, just
why is it just money? You know, why does he have a God complex? You know,
why do you want to make a more prolific version of something that's? You even find out here towards the end of the movie that there's a resistance being formed on the planet where Deckard is, and they're all replicants that are wanting to basically go to war with people. So does he know about that? If he's not knowing of that, does he not realize that he's kind of, he's kind of creating his own destruction?
Well, it's kind of the same thing with him creating replicants that reproduce. I mean, is he going to make money on a replicant that has a baby? Like, he's not going to make any money on that baby, right?
Is he like everybody else that's in the sort of climate change cult? Is like that they hate humanity so much that they just want to see it destroyed as soon as possible?
I think it's probably the whole God complex thing. That's the
same difference.
That's the biggest motivation for Wallace. And love is the hand of God.
And then you come into that where you get that little group when he goes and finds Decker in Vegas. They fight, and then they stop fighting and they drink.
Yeah.
And then Love shows up to, I guess, take Decker back and try to beat an answer out of him about where the child is.
Yeah, that's the entire motivation for Love is find the child. Like, interestingly enough, kind of like we're talking about Evangelion, where like the two opposing forces have the same motivation. Yeah. Like they both want to find the child, but for different reasons.
Yeah. But you meet the little resistance group comes and kind of saves.
I wish we saw more of them.
Okay, that's what I was kind of getting at. Is like, why did we introduce that? It seems to me like Wallace, stuff like Love, they like early with Wallace. I mentioned earlier that they have that replicant that's like being released out of the bag. Mm-hmm. He walks up to it and kisses it and then kills it.
Yeah, because she can't reproduce.
And it's just like, that's all the kind of stuff that seemed like maybe somebody was sort of planting seeds for a sequel. And because the logical step from that would be, follow it to the end. Kay gets beat up really bad by Love. Yeah. He comes to, for some reason, she's taking him off planet to beat him up and beat up Deckard and gets
to get away from legal jurisdictions.
Yeah.
That is what they say. We have facilities where we're not bound by law, that kind of thing. Yeah.
So we have to take him off planet to beat him, which gives him a chance to catch back up and free him from her. But in the process, he gets injured really badly. Kay gets injured. Yeah, Kay does. And he takes Deckard back to where Saloon is so he can go meet his daughter, and he just dies on the steps. Mm-hmm. And to me, all that sets up what's going to happen with Deckard and his daughter, what's going to happen with the Resistance, what is Wallace doing in all of this. That seems like, to me, those things were stuck in, maybe with the idea of there being a follow-up movie.
Maybe.
But, because otherwise, if there's no follow-up on any of that, why put it in? Could have shortened the movie.
Well, I feel like the Resistance group was to help Kay accept that he's not the one. He's not Deckard's child. Because that's one of the things that she tells him is like, we all thought we were.
Yeah.
Well, and it's also
they all want to be.
And it's also to show you that Stalin behind the scenes is sowing the seeds of rebellion amongst the replicants.
I think if you'd moved this movie back, first movie was made in 82. Mm-hmm. This could have been made in like 92. when Harrison Ford was still younger and functioning. Not that he was good in this,
Yeah.
but then you would have had him for the potential sequel. And I guess maybe the first Blade Runner maybe didn't make the money.
Neither Blade Runner films have been theatrical successes.
Yeah, and great day. I mean, they're both really good films.
Yeah.
It's just seems like sometimes it's timing, sometimes it's production. I don't know what gets into all the other. We talked about that with M. Night Shyamalan stuff, and
as popular as this genre is, harder sci-fi, which I would actually consider the Blade Runner films harder sci-fi than the book. As a film genre, hard sci-fi really doesn't do well.
Yeah.
I mean, even like the most sci-fi-ish film that I can think of that like broke through to mainstream was The Matrix.
Yeah.
But aside from that, I really can't think of a.
If you lowered the production of this to be like
The Fifth Element didn't do great.
If you lowered this production to be like the level of like Firefly,
Mm-hmm.
we wouldn't be talking about it, because
Right.
so much of it is the visual and the effects and the money that they put into it. But not being able to get that back, I guess maybe it's just what makes these things not happen as often as they should.
Right.
But
I did want to say that I find it interesting that one of your criticisms is the pacing of the film.
Yes.
Because when I saw it in the theater, one of my first comments was, I'm so glad to finally see a film that lets scenes breathe.
yeah,
Like, I agree with your recognition of those scenes, but I like it.
yeah.
That's why I like, one of the reasons I like these films.
Well, no, he got a lot of praise,
Vanilla-
Gosling,
Oh, Gosling, yeah.
for the way that he portrayed the character and how kind of he was stoic until the point where he kind of finds out that he's not the child,
Mhm.
and he kind of breaks. And then like after that, but basically it's like he comes back to the.
Yeah,
He gets regular checks with the lieutenant.
Yeah, that test he does isn't Voight Kampf, but it's probably like an offshoot of Voight Kampf.
Yeah.
And it's testing like how stable he is.
Yeah.
Or how controllable he
And
is, one or the other.
He fails the test.
Yeah.
And then like basically the lieutenant's like, you got 48 hours, we're going to have to test you again, and after that we're going to put you down. And that's when he goes out to kind of do everything else, find Deckard and all that stuff. But
Now, when in the theater, when Harrison Ford showed up, when he's like, I'm going to go get Deckard, and Harrison Ford showed up, I rolled my eyes. I wasn't a big fan of that. I was like, oh, come on.
yeah.
Rewatching it, I was much more accepting of it. I think it was fine. I think he did great.
Still never really answers for me whether or not Deckard's a replicant or not.
See,
Because
yeah,
he's still they fight, and he kind of kicks Officer K's rear end. So
and replicants are known to be stronger.
it's like if you're doing that, then I guess maybe at this point Harrison Ford was maybe in his 60s still.
Yeah.
But if you're able to do that, you have to be.
But
kind of suggests that you're a replicant, but then
and also, like I said, it was the idea that humans can procreate with replicants. They don't really even touch on that.
Yeah.
So
That
maybe
kind of-
the implication is, well, he's a replicant. That's why they can procreate.
or that's the counter argument that if the anomaly is that a human and a replicant can't actually have a child because you need that input from a human, then that kind of argues that he's not a replicant.
Right.
So
right.
You get that ambiguity, and I don't know if that's intentional or if that's just we didn't really think it out when we wrote the story, or what.
I think maybe it's to honor the legacy. You don't want to actually answer it because it's a part of it.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah, it's one of those things, again, you can't what if everything to death, but if this had been made in the time frame that it should have been made, so much of it could have made more sense. And at this point, when you make it, you stick in Harrison Ford, it's just like, in 2017, I think it wasn't as bad as it is now, where we have to find something nostalgic to stick into this movie so that you'll come and see it. And that's just become the format for every movie that's been made in the last 5 years.
Well, Hollywood's going through this phase. They've been going through it for a while now, maybe 10 years at this point, where they have to mine their old properties for ideas and profit.
Yeah.
And that's kind of where Blade Runner is right now. I mean, Blade Runner and Tron have very similar trajectories when you think about when the first movie was made, when the second movie was made, what they did in between them, and what they're trying to do now. Because Blade Runner is it's kind of having a resurgence, and it's not really due to Blade Runner 2049's profit. It's due to the critic reception and the fan reception.
Yeah.
And they're just mining that nostalgia to try to get people to consume this media.
You could have done a complete almost walkthrough of this story and not have Deckard involved in it at all.
Right.
I mean, he could have just gone off Rachel.
Yeah.
You could have even still had the storyline of where Rachel had a baby and Deckard was dead.
Yeah.
And
Deckard was dead. Oh, well, what about Love? Where she played? Well, she's following Kay. And he noticed she's following him, so he confronts her, and they fight, and she dies.
Yeah.
I mean, yeah, Deckard was definitely like a fan service edition.
Yeah.
But I think, like I said, after accepting it and watching it again, I do see the value in having him in there.
Yeah. And I think the thing that you missed by maybe pursuing a sequel where you have a resistance is if you took that next step into some sort of conflict between the humans in LA and whoever else is left and the replicants, as you get to people like Deckard and his daughter and any of the other runners that are there. It's like where do they fall down? Whose side are they? Kay follows orders blindly through the whole movie until he snaps when he finds out about that he's not him, and that the daughter exists, and then when he does, it's like it gives him that whatever you need to break free and kind of go out on your own. That's when he starts to go out and do his own thing. So
I kind of saw it as like him finding himself, like becoming his own individual. And like when he finds out that his memories are someone else's, that breaks him a little.
Yeah. And that could all be explored in another one with would the runners be on the sides of this resistance? Would they try to kill the resistance? Would Wallace be making more loves to be the thing that fought the resistance? And
I have a hard time with the idea of a grander Blade Runner film, because both films have been about these small sets of characters, these 5 or 6 characters, and this is what the story's about. Oh. If you have start having resistances and stuff, it becomes more.
It's the Matrix problem. It's you started with this concise sort of Matrix story, and you wanted to figure out how, and they got pressured, I guess, into making more movies from the studio and stuff. How do we wrap this up into like a trilogy? And it is to get into, let's have a big conflict between machines and the people that are left. And a lot of people didn't like those sequels. I like how that kind of ends. I would like to have seen it followed up on with something that wasn't that last Matrix movie.
There's another one?
That recent thing.
Don't recall?
The one we saw in the theater.
Nope, don't remember it all.
Oh, yeah. It doesn't exist.
Yep.
I agree with that. But had me thinking, I was like, did we not see that?
No, yeah, we saw it in the theater.
We sat through that.
Sat through it, we did.
Yeah. But that's always the danger, I guess, is where to take a franchise like that. But
see, and it's funny because right now, in my mind, thinking about Blade Runner 2049, and I'm sure they're going to make a sequel at some point. I'm thinking like, well, it doesn't need a sequel, and that was the same thing I was thinking about Blade Runner when they made 2049.
What was it from this one to the first one? Is it almost 40 years? Was it over 40 years?
Almost 40 years, like 35 years.
So 35 years would be 85-ish, 86 by the time they made another one. I'm not sure I'm going to care about a Blade Runner sequel at that point.
I think if they do a sequel, I think either Deckard should be dead in between. He should die between, or die in the opening. Like that should be what sets things off.
Yeah.
Stalene, if they could figure out a way that she can be outside of that bubble, it'd be kind of weird having her run around in a spacesuit the whole time. But they could come up with something. Oh, she's cured or something.
Put her in a mecha suit.
Yeah. Yeah.
I'm always in favor of mechas.
But I would be open to the idea of another one. Yeah.
Yeah. No prequels. Don't go back. Go forward with the story if you're going to do anything. Don't do the mistake of Disney to try to go back and I'm going to make.
No, I don't want to see
series.
I don't want to see Nexus 2s. I don't need to see Nexus 2s. The Alien synthetics have that problem where they go into earlier versions of the Alien and they're like, well, we have a synthetic. Well, it's earlier in the technology, so they have to look less human. Yeah. So in between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049, in 1997, Westwood made a video game simply called Blade Runner.
Okay.
Not based on the movie, just based in the world. The basic concept, I have the cover is on the screen here. The basic concept is you play a rookie Blade Runner, and your name is McCoy, and you have to find some replicants who have been killing animals. So you got to hunt them down and kill them because they're killing animals. During your investigation, you're framed for a murder. You go to the criminal underworld to clear your name, and in the end, there are multiple endings. And so, like, you can play one ending where McCoy is a replicant. You can get one ending where McCoy is a human. You can get an ending where McCoy, you don't know. And you can, like, side with the replicants. You can side with the humans. And I really like because I played it when it came out in 1997. They made an enhanced version in 2022. Night Dive Studios did. Great studio, by the way, doing a lot of really good work modernizing some older games. But I think it really played homage to almost the unintentional connective tissue between a lot of the Blade Runner properties is questioning, well, who's real? Or is the main character real?
Yeah.
Because I don't think when Blade Runner first came out, I don't think they wanted the theater goers to think that Deckard was a replicant. Because they cut the stuff out from the final cut. They cut his unicorn dreams out.
Yeah.
But that is a big part of the theme is like, well, is the character you're playing, is the main character a replicant?
Okay.
I thought it was great. It was if someone's a fan, if someone plays video games, and you're a fan of Blade Runner, highly recommended.
Yeah.
It's an adventure game. You run around, pick stuff up, click on things, solve puzzles.
Yeah.
So there are 3 short films that take place also between Blade Runner and Blade Runner 2049. One is called Blackout.
Yeah. That's what I was trying to remember when I was talking about why Terrell went away and Wallace came in. I think that's where that story.
Blackout?
Yeah.
Okay. That's on Crunchyroll.
Okay.
I do not have Crunchyroll. This is the part where I'm going to talk about Crunchyroll. At some point, I'm going to get it. It's almost inevitable. If you're gonna consume this kind of media, you have 2 options: pirate or subscribe to Crunchyroll. And my piracy days are long behind me. My hat has been long put up. There used to be websites like tvshows.com or something like that, and it would like change the web address would change all the time because they'd get in trouble. I stopped chasing those. I'll just do streaming. But I was subscribed to Funimation.
Yeah, you've told me about that.
Yep. And I had this respectable, I say respectable, it wasn't huge, but it was a respectable digital anime library that I was building.
Yeah.
And Sony, who owns Crunchyroll, bought Funimation. Actually, no, it was the other way around. Sony, who owned Funimation, bought Crunchyroll, and then they shut down Funimation and fed everything into Crunchyroll, but they didn't, like Crunchyroll doesn't have digital copies. It's you subscribe to them and you have access to them.
Yeah.
And that's one of the things I liked about Funimation is at one point I did subscribe to their service, but for the most part, I just had my digital library. And that's all gone. That's just gone.
That's the danger with, you mentioned like Voodoo and all these other things where you buy digital copies.
If it goes away, what do you...
They decide to shut down, then you have no copy of anything anymore.
What you're purchasing is the license to view, which can be rescinded at any point.
Yeah.
Yeah, it does suck. That's why I prefer, because I don't know if Voodoo still has that since they became Fandango at Home, but they had a program at one point where you could go on the computer and for $5, you could turn your physical copy into a digital copy. And I spent a lot of money doing that. Yeah. Taking my physical DVDs and like putting them in the DVD player, and it would read it and say, okay, well, yes, this is a physical copy.
I still use the thing where you redeem the little code and get the digital copy.
That too.
But there's very few of those that even exist anymore.
And that's how I got my Funimation digital library. Is you would buy anime and would have the code.
Yeah.
So all the digital anime that I had on Funimation, I have physically. But
that was probably the height of media. That's where it should have stayed.
Yeah, absolutely. But that's on Crunchyroll, and then there's also 2 that are on YouTube. 2036 Nexus Dawn, and then 2048 Nowhere to Run.
Which one was the Cartoon Network, like Adult Swim? Was I remember being in hotels and seeing...
I think that was Nowhere to Run.
I remember seeing ads for a Blade Runner thing, and I was like, I'm not going to watch that because I don't even know the story.
Let's see.
And also, when I'd see those things in a hotel, you get to watch like an episode or 2.
No, Nowhere to Run is live action.
Okay.
It has Bautista in it. So I'm thinking that might be Blackout.
I don't remember. Blackout is an anime, and this is the one I was
Blackout
talking
is
about.
animated, yeah.
The whole storyline in this is that there's a mission to wipe out all the electronic data and destroy Tyrell Corporation servers.
Mm-hmm.
And they actually do. They succeed. I don't know what else happens with the characters. The servers that are powering the internet are destroyed. Power to Los Angeles is permanently disabled.
Wow.
And then the global collapse follows, in which all Replicant production ends and Tyrell goes bankrupt. The Wallace Corporation acquires Tyrell and restarts production of a new model a decade later. So
okay.
that's the... I remember reading something about that, and I was trying to remember that. That's the in-between. That's why Tyrell went away. And that's where Wallace came from. So that's kind of a cool...
Interesting.
...way to arch those two. And it's nice to see that somebody did a thing where they kind of came back in the time frame between these two, because this was made... It was made in 2017 too, so I don't know if it came out in conjunction with the movie or right after it. But it's definitely like a prequel to the movie.
You also have Blade Runner Black Lotus, which is a one-season series.
That's the thing that was on... Used to come on like Adult Swim.
Adult Swim, okay.
Now I would see that on. I was just like, "There's no way I'm going to watch this and have any idea what's going on." So whenever I had a chance to watch an episode or 2 of it, I was like, "I'm just not going to."
Okay, well, it takes place in 2032, 10 years after Blackout. And I'll watch it at some point. I'm looking forward to it. I really like the idea of extended media.
Seeing both ends of it, it'd be nice to connect especially if they all kind of are written within respect to each other and not trying to change canon and all this stuff. Yeah. Especially with those being animes, it's very likely that they stayed on task with them.
I did look it up. Just from playing the game, I know the game is in conjunction with the first movie. It takes place at the same time.
Okay.
There are events in the film that you are affected by in the game.
Okay.
All the short films are in continuity. Black Lotus is in continuity.
Yeah. So
it's all a part of the same universe. There's no this didn't really happen, but we're making it anyway.
I think it's a missed opportunity on so many things where you get these big IPs that are obviously a big undertaking, excuse me, and in making any kind of movie, like either of the Blade Runners is obviously expensive and hard to make your money back on. Mm-hmm. To intermingle animation and stuff with it, I think is the way to do it. It's just
absolutely
the missing pieces that is not accessible. You said that Blackout 22 is on Crunchyroll. If it was just on whatever if one streaming service got the rights to the movies, have all of it,
right?
So you can actually see it.
One play. If you have the movie, if you can stream the movie, you should be able to stream the other stuff on the same service. I agree.
I've noticed that I think at one point I would see, because of the Mission Impossible movie that was coming out here recently, I was like, maybe I try to go back and get through all of those because I've never seen them. And I was like, you look on Prime, there'd be 1 or 2 of them. I'm like, I'm not gonna watch number 3 if I can't go back and see 1 or 4 or whatever. Yeah. And I think I finally have seen that somebody got the rights and has the whole line. And it's like that shouldn't be that hard to do. That should be something you as a studio sells as a package. It's like, I'm not gonna sell you a movie and you one, or I'm not gonna give you Blade Runner 1982 and then give you the anime. It's like, just, it's our property. It shouldn't be auctioned off.
Yeah, I agree. The next thing that's coming out for Blade Runner is Blade Runner 2033 Labyrinth. So that takes place a year after Black Lotus.
Okay.
And that's all we know. As far as I know, that's all we know about it. We know the title.
Is that the same people that made the Black Lotus? Is it like a continuation of their stuff?
No idea.
Okay.
No idea. I don't even know what, like, they haven't announced when it's coming out. That's just it. It's something else coming.
Yes. Yeah, I'm definitely a proponent of trying to track down some of the other stuff and watching it because, again, I like the beginning, I like the end, so I'll consume the middle and see what it has to offer. If it's anime, it's probably going to be something that will keep my attention more than trying to stay awake through the 2.5 hour long movie or however long the last one was. I know the first one's not quite as long, but I know the length of 2049 was kind of an issue for me.
I wouldn't be opposed to. I did look into whether or not there are any Blade Runner comics. I'm sure there are, but I wouldn't be opposed to them expanding it that way.
That would only be if that was controlled.
Yeah.
So many comic things just go off the rails, and then you get people that start arguing for one or the other, and it's like
one of the things I like that some studios have done is they continue the continuity of the films in comic form. Yeah. It's like, well, we wanted to tell this story and we couldn't for one reason or another, so here's what we wanted to say. Yeah. Like Symbiotic Titan, like they could, like, imagine they just made a comic of whatever else they wanted to do.
It'd be amazing if they did.
I know they did it with Buffy the Vampire Slayer. They did like 2 seasons after the show ended. They did 2 seasons of comics. Yeah. That was great.
If it's done by the same people, that's fine. Mm-hmm. I know, like, Avatar, Last Airbender stuff, after Korra went into this whole comic thing, and I think it was kind of hijacked by people that were trying to do something different with it than what the show originally was. Mm-hmm. And that's where I don't want to see stuff go to comics, because the comic industry sometimes is a little weird. One
of my favorite comic continuations is Ash versus Freddy versus Jason, or Freddy versus Jason versus Ash. There was an actual script that went around. They were trying to get made, but as far as I understand, Sam Raimi didn't want to relinquish whatever kinds of rights or control over the Ash character.
Yeah.
So they couldn't make the film, but they wanted it to be a sequel to Freddy vs. Jason. And since they couldn't get the rights to make the film, for some reason they could make it into a comic. It was a fantastic comic.
Okay.
Fantastic comic. It was a great story from all perspectives.
Cool.
Yeah. That has nothing to do with Blade Runner. But so is there anything else you want to say about any of the Blade Runner series, franchise, anything like that?
Not until we get into the coffee, because there's some larger...
Yeah, more themes to talk about.
A little more philosophy involved with our coffee service portion of it, I think. But I think for the films themselves, that I think we covered it.
Okay. Well, thank you for joining us. That would be it for part 2.
Was it just part 2?
Just part 2 of episode 5 of Appalachian Dim Sum.
All right.
Thanks, Joel.
All right, thanks. We'll see you on the next one.
See you next one.